How do you understand your company's reputation as an employer? Metrics vary from company to company, making it hard to benchmark your progress against competitors. This is where the Employer Brand Index comes in. It analyzes what employees, candidates, and alumni are saying about your company and quantifies these findings into a single score. We can even dive into your talent competitors to really understand how competitive your employer brand is. Our team of talent analysts collect all available data points, discover patterns, and deliver a report full of insights and recommendations. Want to know more? Go to employerbrandindex.co.
Hey, sons of Vason, it's Jürgen Sundberg here with the Employer Branding Podcast, brought to you by your friendly team here at Link Humans out of London. This is, of course, the show where we have an employer brand leader on to answer questions about their company, the talent landscape, what employer brand looks like in their organization, how it's deployed, and lots of tips and tricks along the way. With that, let's start the show. Hey, Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So please let the listeners know who you are and what is it that you do?
Sure. I'm Rachel Duran. I'll lead global employer brands and recruitment marketing at Hewlett Packard Enterprise.
Okay, right. So Hewlett Packard Enterprise, HPE, please tell our audience about the company.
Sure. We are the global edge to cloud company advancing the way people live and work. That's our purpose. In other words, from a technology perspective, we offer AI, networking, data, cloud, and security solutions. We have about 60,000 employees across 50 plus countries. And a quick fun fact for my techie friends, because I love the techie stuff, the world's most powerful supercomputer was built by HPE.
And what's the name of this supercomputer?
It's called the El Capitan. It achieves 1.742 exaflops, if you're into that kind of thing. Also really cool about it is our sustainability initiatives. It's the first 100% fanless direct liquid cooled system. And that reduces the amount of power needed to cool each server blade by 37%. And that's really important, especially as we come more into this world of AI. AI uses a lot of server power. So reducing the energy required to process that data is really important.
Wow. Okay. So exaflops. I'm not even going to pretend I know what that is. I remember floppy disks. That was something different. Okay. So the elephant in the room, HPE versus HP Inc. What's the difference?
Yes, this is probably one of our biggest challenges with talent attraction and messaging. So it used to be all the same company, right? We didn't steal the name. So basically, Hewlett Packard Enterprise is that enterprise side of the house. More the B2B versus B2C when you think about HP, who makes the printers and the laptops that you typically see. And so it is the typical challenge of the consumer-facing product that people are more familiar with versus the enterprise solutions that you may only be familiar with if you've worked in IT.
Got it. Okay. And what is the overall talent challenge at the company?
Yeah, so I could go on and on about this, right? Because it varies so specifically by different regions, job levels, job types, especially with being a global company. But attraction is really the biggest challenge. Even when I first joined a little over 2 years ago, it was impressed upon me that the recruiters do a great job of getting candidates from that first interview to an offer accept. So attraction is that top of the funnel is really our biggest issue. The awareness of HPE as a company and what we do specifically, not HP, is a messaging challenge. It's consistent. And then the time to fill also, right? We need to be able to support the business and major initiatives, especially to stay nimble and on top of the market. Those skill sets change rather quickly and update rather quickly. And so we need to find those qualified applicants, get them interested and engaged in applying quickly. That can be especially tough when sourcers are spending extra time with that messaging and differentiation. So we need to support them, to get past that piece when they get them to interview.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting one. It's a common B2B challenge, really, when people as consumers and where they're not familiar with the company. But I guess in your case, it's a differentiation from a consumer brand. So yeah, an interesting
Right,
one.
right.
All right. So tell us about HPE's employer brand and how it came about.
Sure, sure. So we stick with differentiation because a lot of tech companies offer a lot of the same things. So we want to talk about specifically what HP offers that might be a little different or surprising or unique to us. We spent a lot of time when I first joined at really narrowing down what that employer value proposition is and what the employer brand looks like. Because at the end of the day, it's not what we decide it is or want to say it is. It's whatever our current team members say that it is. So we had focus groups on this. And one thing that really stood out was, the longevity of people that work for HPE. It is not uncommon at all to run across somebody who's been here for 15, 20, 30 years. That's really unique to a tech company. And so we really talk about that and career mobility. That's really a big piece of it. We have industry leading training and development programs. So that's one thing that we focus on a lot that's globally consistent. And then also the piece about work that fits your life in an era when a lot of companies are doing full return to office. We really want to talk about our belief in giving team members the power to shape their experience around their work life. So we have a hybrid flexible model. So it ensures that connectivity, right, dependent on the team and the work that they do and the location and how, what the business needs are for that. But it also has continued impacts for team members and delivers a good culture with that flexibility. So we really focus on that a lot. And then just kind of the differentiation in the benefits that you would expect. So, Wellness Fridays, we have 4 times a year where everyone is off, meaning you don't have that huge pileup of missed work emails when you return, which is great. We also have industry leading parental leave policies. We have 26 weeks of paid parental leave for all parents, and then a parental transition support option to return part-time for up to 3 years. And then the community time off is very popular as well. HP gives 60 hours of paid volunteer time off. So that's really our 3 pillars that we stick to from a global perspective is that career mobility, the flexibility in the work life and, those unique benefits.
And out of these offerings, which ones would you say resonate the best with talents that you are talking to about coming on board?
Sure. I think probably what resonates the most is the career mobility piece, especially coming out of those workshops and meeting so many team members with really unique career stories and how much they can utilize lateral moves at gigs, development. We have so many programs internally that really make for some interesting career paths and stories. So we nailed down our EVP tagline to redefine what's next for you. And that helps us lead into a storytelling narrative from our team members, letting them tell the story, not us, about those non-traditional pathways of their internal mobilities and their career stories. And it's also a nod to one of our core beliefs at HPE, which is accelerating what's next. And that leads into the opportunity to tell customer stories and helps us tie in the technology and solutions piece, which also helps clarify the messaging on that differentiation for Hewlett Packard Enterprise versus HP. So that really has worked well for us. We launched that about a year ago, and we are publishing more blogs and stories and videos around that and utilizing that content in events and campaigns. And so that has really helped us engage talent internally and then engage the talent externally through that storytelling.
Okay, so Rachel, you've got this position here, you've got a sort of an EVP employer brand there. How do you go about activating this and how do you put it in front of prospective talents?
Oh, that's such a good question. This has been a labor of love and it is so detailed. There's a lot of operations behind it, but I'll kind of stick to two main points around strategy. So we really look at the content. So what is the messaging, right? And then what and the channels. So from a content perspective, it's that strategic storytelling. Back to what I was saying earlier, just centering the people and tying that messaging back to the gaps and the business needs for that. So we have team member stories and customer success stories. So we've implemented a blog series on what we call the Advancing Life and Work blog, which is really fantastic. We feature new team members every other week and their career stories and wonderful photography of them, especially if they're in our Houston or Bangalore offices. We have a lot of great video and photography content that we've had support from our internal brand team, which is great. And then when we think about channels, we really talk about hyper targeting. So this is where that messaging gets a lot more specific by region, job type, level, things like that. Our philosophy is putting that content where people naturally are and where they're already spending their time consuming content and scrolling, not where we think a candidate, quote unquote, should be, right? At the end of the day, a potential candidate is a person. And so it works the exact same way as regular marketing of products or services, right? So a well-targeted paid ad on Instagram can often get better results than LinkedIn, just as an example, and it's at a fraction of the cost, right? So you have to think a little more creatively about it. You can't target by job types or, current companies very well, but you can work around interests for sure. And then content that's very specific to various locations, job families, job levels. We target more personalized content to those locations and audiences. And we, on our career site, even people internally are surprised to hear how many landing pages we have on our career site, but it's because we have different landing pages for each country, each job group, and we have key hubs that get content housed there to really drive home that click to apply that we're looking for, by having content that makes sense to them from people in those offices, in those local regions, in those jobs that they would like to do. And that's also been a huge search engine optimization driver for us. Besides the strategy, though, I do have to say it is a lot of work, right? Building out that much content for a global company is a lot of work. Activation's been a journey of both partnership and just creativity and operations. We have great relationships with our internal marketing and brand teams and Corpcom teams, and we all work together and try to align to their goals as well so that we can, instead of duplicating work, we can kind of combine activities and campaigns, and that's worked really well for us. I have a marketing operations manager, Marco. He keeps us organized and documented and focused on what the priorities are and how those map back to the business needs. And then we also have regional marketing managers in each global region, and their job is to align with those regional talent acquisition leads to know what the need is specifically there for hiring campaigns, what the country leaders are looking for, what content we might need. And then we also have social media managers specifically for our HPE careers. And there we have one focused on the recruiting side, the job piece, and then we have one more on the employer brand strategy piece, just kind of that overall messaging and strategy. And that has worked really well for us. And this is, over the past 2 years, we've really built out what that looks like. And I think that's a key component to the successful activation that we're seeing today.
Amazing. Okay, so a couple of follow-up questions here. The first one is around Instagram, and that's really interesting.
Mhm.
Highly targeted ads on Instagram that could be successful at a fraction of the cost of LinkedIn. So give us an example. It doesn't have to be a real example, but what would it look like and how would a targeting be set up?
Sure. And I'll just say one of the reasons I like to bring up Instagram a lot is because it covers a lot of age demographics and capability, right? So like reels are a great way to get organic reach, for instance, and having that video content. And so when you look at targeting those messages, you can really target it based on certain interests and their key location and just have a wider audience because it is less expensive, for impressions and for clicks there than it would be at a LinkedIn. So you can cast a much wider net, right? You can take the risk to have a lot of people see it that may not necessarily be in that type of work or be looking for that type of job, but they might know someone who does, and they're more likely to share it on a platform like Instagram, for example, than they would on, say, a LinkedIn. It's a little bit more, a little bit less of a common trait for people to do that. So that's one of the reasons that we really navigate towards that. Besides the fact that if it's not a paid campaign, because it's not, we may not want to specifically invest in a campaign that is tied to a really high priority hiring need, right? That organic content piece is going to perform so much better on something like Instagram than it would on LinkedIn.
Interesting. Okay. My follow-up question number 2 is you mentioned you have a great partnership with HPE's in-house marketing departments. So I'm wondering now, who owns employer brand inside the company, and does marketing or anyone else get territorial around brand ownership?
So talent acquisition as an organization owns employer brand, which I do love because we need to be aligned with those business goals, right? I have been in situations before at other companies where the brand teams or marketing teams could be rather territorial. I have not run into that issue at HPE, and I think that that is a key to why we've been so successful in working together. One piece of advice that I have there that has worked really well for me is I typically, when I join or start a new employer brand program, I will talk to that brand team's leaders and say, hey, I'm not here to take up extra of your time. I come from an advertising background. My job is to protect the brand. But I also want you guys to be able to focus on revenue generating activities. That's your main job. That has worked really well for us to just partner internally, and they have been a joy to work with, and we've been able to align so many initiatives, and it's been great.
Great. Okay. Right. So my final follow-up question on that section is, you mentioned you're partnering with internal teams to combine content generation. So for our listeners' benefit, what teams would you say are good to start with, which have a sort of a natural synergy with employer brand?
Yeah, so definitely the internal communications team. Ours is large enough that we have different people who focus on different pieces of internal communication. So we work with our HR internal communications side of the house quite frequently to talk about how the messaging makes sense internally and externally to pull that employer value proposition together and make sure that that's all in sync. And so they typically have goals around different internal initiatives where, say, a blog around someone's career story would really help with navigating the importance of internal mobility, using our internal career hub. And so we can align those key messages quite well and have internal versions of those blogs and be able to route people back and forth to both the external and internal side, and ask them to share those blogs externally on their social media channels as well. And so that has been a really key partnership, not just in spreading the workload out, but in making sure that we get optimum activity on both the external and internal side of those campaigns.
Fantastic. All right. So let's move on now to measuring results. So how do you go about doing that, and what do you report back to management?
This is one of my favorite topics because it's often very difficult to do. So our biggest key in measuring metrics is aligning it to our leadership and company goals, making that very clear from the beginning of the fiscal year, and making sure we navigate that each quarter to move with the leadership if that has moved. So I always ask, what problem are we solving, right? So going back to what our key initiatives are. So if a problem that we're trying to solve is awareness, like I brought up earlier, then we're measuring visibility. How many impressions do we have on social media posts? How many email opens do we have on the CRM campaigns? How many leads are we getting, at career expo booths, things like that. And then messaging, that's another big problem that we're trying to solve. So how can we measure that impact? We're doing that through career site engagement. How many new visitors are we getting, and what does their retention and loyalty rates look like on the career site? And then are they joining the talent community? And then, of course, the ultimate goal, right, is that leading to higher application rates? And so those are really the top of the funnel metrics that we typically send when you think of an executive review. And of course, we have much more specific metrics that we're looking at a campaign by campaign basis to judge, where we may want to tweak that strategy a little bit. But those are the key pieces that we have on our executive dashboard.
Okay. All right. So you have already given us lots of nice, good, useful tips there. But what will be some of your top tips for employer brand professionals and perhaps aspiring ones listening to this episode right now?
Okay, I would definitely say business acumen. So understand your business goals, understand your hiring and talent gaps, know how to manage a P&L, because at the end of the day, your ROI is always going to be supporting the business goals as effectively and efficiently as possible. Talent acquisition is a cost center. So you have to show how you're saving money, but being more efficient and applying to your goals. And being able to tell them that employer brand is always on, even if hiring is not, and being able to explain the business need for that. I would also say relationships. We've talked about that a lot, the ability to collaborate internally, and then also providing value to your own talent acquisition team, right? Just educating your leaders and recruiters on marketing best practices and how to apply them, and also how it helps them reach their goals. And then operations, I would say it can get very messy when you're just doing a lot of implementation. So, establish yourself as a consultative partner to your talent acquisition and business leaders, not a reactive order taker. This can take some time to really build that out. But I think it's very easy for recruitment marketing teams to get stuck in that order taking piece. And, it's just so much more efficient to run it as being proactive, understand the needs, what's going to come up most likely, and templatize everything, your processes, your intake calls, your literal templates for marketing assets. That operational standardization will help a lot.
Templatize. Okay, I like it. And where do you keep all these templates?
Oh, in SharePoint. It's the whole folder system.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, Rachel, what is it that makes your job so special?
Oh, that's a great question. I've been doing this for about a decade now, and I would say definitely the storytelling aspect. I absolutely love hearing people's career stories and hearing unique stories. And I always hear something surprising when speaking to people for content. I love playing the documentarian. It fills my cup. And kind of on the same note, right, the community, employer brand and recruitment marketing is such a small world. And so it just feels like a very tight-knit group. And there's just such a culture of camaraderie, and just knowledge sharing.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And in spirit of knowledge sharing and connecting, where can our listeners, well, first of all, where can they find out more about HPE, but also where can they connect with yourself?
Sure. So you can find out more about HPE careers you can follow us on Instagram. I've been talking about that a lot, or visit careers.hpe.com. You can see our career site with all of our fun content there. And then for me, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find, Rachel Duran. And I love connecting, especially with other employer brand and recruitment marketing professionals, and free to talk shop anytime.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, folks, there we have it. Be sure to reach out to our guests with any questions or just to connect. You can find this episode and the entire back catalogue over at employerbrandingpodcast.com, along with articles summarizing what we have learned. And if you, just like many of my dear interviewees, are interested in measuring employer brand, be sure to check out the Employer Brand Index. Of course, providing unbiased employer brand insights driven by data. It's trusted by some of the greatest companies in the world, and you can find it at linkhumans.com. Or why not get in touch with me and I'll tell you all about it as well. That is it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and catch you next time. Hey,
I think if you asked my team what is the one thing that I say all the time, it would be, what problem are we solving? I don't know how inspirational that is, but it's kind of our guiding point to prioritize just what problem are we solving.